In the wild, every breath is a wager against death. One missed strike, and hunter can become prey. No mercy, no second chances. Only the strongest endure. Across the African Savanna, the deadliest battles are beginning. Contrary to their portrayal on screen, hyenas are not scavengers waiting on scraps, but skilled, active hunters. With around 95% of their meals coming from kills they make themselves. Their hunting success rate climbs to roughly 74%, a figure that outpaces many other carnivores sharing the same territory. A heart that makes up barely 1% of its body weight, nonetheless allows this species to sustain speeds of about 37 km/h over long pursuits. High above, at a vantage point of some 16.4 feet, a mother giraffe keeps watch over the plain with unblinking attention, ready to defend her calf with the sheer force of stomping hooves driven by a body weighing up to 1,764 libs. Yet the harshness of savanna life begins even earlier for young hyenas, who must fight survival from their very first days inside a dark communal den. In the competition for nutrient-dense milk, roughly 25% of cubs do not make it, lost either to aggression from their own littermates or to scarce food during those first fragile weeks of life. Even a giraffe calf that survives such early dangers still has countless hidden threats waiting across the immense plain ahead. When the heat of midday saps the senses of every living thing on the savanna, lions rise and begin their search. A single predator, bringing roughly 287 elabs of muscle and claws measuring 1.6 inches, sets its sights on toppling a structure standing 16.4 feet tall. But the giraffe's powerful thigh muscles store tremendous kinetic energy, and one precise, well-placed kick is often enough to send an entire pride scattering in retreat, undone by the sheer force of a mother's will to protect her young. A failed hunt is proof enough that strength alone does not guarantee victory on this plain. Not far from the wildebeest herds, the cheetah, arguably evolution's most refined speed machine, faces a strikingly similar struggle. Built like a living sports car, this cat relies on explosive muscle power and razor-sharp hunting instincts honed over generations. A remarkably flexible spine and claws that never fully retract give the cheetah exceptional traction the instant it accelerates. In barely 3 seconds, it can hit speeds of around 70 mph, more than enough to run down a nimble target like an impala. As the chase begins, the cheetah's body shifts into a kind of overdrive, its heart rate climbing to roughly 250 beats per minute to fuel the sprint, sending a steady rush of oxygen to muscles working at their absolute limit. And yet, time and again, a mother impala refuses to surrender her calf without a fight. Watching her calf slip safely back into the heart of the herd, the cheetah is often forced to accept defeat and abandon the pursuit. This physical toll places real limits on how often a cheetah can hunt and ultimately on its odds of long-term survival. Once again, a mother's fierce protectiveness proves to be one of the savanna's most effective defenses against its fastest hunters. Even as young lion cubs wait back at the den for their mothers to return with food, one of the greatest spectacles on the African continent is already unfolding elsewhere. Across the vast landscapes of East Africa, the Great Migration resembles nothing so much as an enormous, self-organized military campaign. More than 1.5 million wildebeest move together in dense columns, crossing parched terrain in search of fresh grazing ground. Their strategy is a textbook case of predator satiation, overwhelming the hunting capacity of every predator around simply through weight of numbers. Hundreds of thousands of calves arrive within a single 3-week window, a synchronized burst of birth designed to maximize the odds that enough young will survive. For the region's lion prides, this sudden abundance looks like an endless buffet spread across the grassland. And it is the wildebeest that wander too slowly or drift too far from the herd that draw the hunter's attention first. Much like the giraffe, an adult wildebeest is essentially a living tank, weighing in at around 551 ml/libre. Guided by remarkable resilience, the herd's collective awareness, a kind of swarm intelligence, relays warning signals through the group faster than any man-made communication network could manage. Firm, muscular bodies paired with sharply curved horns turn outward toward any approaching threat, while calves retreat safely into the protected core of the herd's defensive formation. Faced with thousands of determined hooves ready to strike, lions frequently abandon the chase rather than risk confrontation, and the disappointment is visible in their eyes as the herd's unity proves too much to overcome. In this kingdom, a truly united group becomes an almost unbreakable fortress. One capable of making even nature's most accomplished hunters think twice and turn away. Rather than stand and fight, many mothers on the savannah choose instead to disappear, relying on stillness to shield their most vulnerable offspring. A piglet melts almost instantly into the dust, vanishing beneath a natural blanket of dry brush and scattered vegetation. In that frozen, silent world, absolute quiet becomes the only real barrier against a predator's keen sense of smell. And this tense standoff of nerves may be the most demanding test of endurance the plain has to offer. A warthog mother effectively renders her piglets invisible right under the noses of an approaching lion pride. Unsuccessful hunters simply wait, patient and unhurried, already scanning the horizon for their next opportunity. Hunger, it turns out, does not necessarily breed haste, since every movement on the savannah is really a calculation shaped by millions of years of natural pressure. When the distance closes to under about 98 feet, the hunt begins in earnest. Lions can reach speeds near 50 mph within a matter of seconds, while a fleeing warthog answers with a determined pace of its own, close to 31 mph. The mother's raised tail becomes a kind of beacon, a visual signal guiding her piglets safely through the tangled undergrowth. Eventually, the family disappears into an abandoned aardvark burrow, roughly 9.8 feet deep, a last refuge from the chase. Even with muscle making up some 60% of their total body weight, the lions refuse to give up easily, clawing at earth that rain has packed down almost as hard as concrete. The effort of digging burns through roughly 3 times the energy of an ordinary hunt. And as body temperature climbs and lactic acid floods their muscles, exhaustion eventually forces the lions to retreat, their intended meal now completely out of reach. Lacking a hiding place like the warthog's underground burrow, a young gazelle has no choice but to remain exposed in open country. Its yellowish-brown coat, shaped by a phenomenon known as cryptic coloration, allows the calf to blend almost seamlessly into the surrounding dry grass. Dormant scent glands, combined with a naturally low heart rate, transform the little one into something resembling a motionless stone in the eyes of any approaching hunter. Nearby, a cheetah relies on its extraordinary panoramic vision to detect the faintest hint of movement, and from as far away as 3.1 miles, its gaze poses a serious threat to nearly everything living on the plain. The gazelle calf holds perfectly still, staking its survival entirely on silence, suspended precariously between safety and danger. To draw the threat away, the mother resorts to a classic distraction display, transforming herself into an irresistible moving target designed to trigger the cheetah's chasing instinct. She willingly risks her own safety to buy her offspring a chance at survival. What follows is an endurance contest at speeds exceeding 62 km/h beneath the blazing savanna sun, with the mother gazelle relying on stamina and sudden, sharp changes of direction to wear the cheetah down. Eventually, overheated and out of breath, the cheetah gives up the chase, its effort undone once again by maternal devotion and millions of years of evolutionary refinement. While a pride's attention is consumed by one confrontation, the lion cubs left behind at the den suddenly find themselves in the most precarious position imaginable. A herd of Cape buffalo advances into lion territory with clear and decisive intent, ready to strike first. With the adult protectors absent, the den becomes the site of a swift and deliberate removal. From a purely survival-driven perspective, eliminating a single lion cub today may spare hundreds of future Cape buffalo calves from becoming prey down the line, a calculated response shaped by the unyielding logic of the wild. The balance of power on the savanna is never fixed for long. What the returning lioness discovers is only silence and the unmistakable evidence of loss. Grief quickly hardens into a fierce determination to respond, and a roar that seems to shake the very ground announces her defiance toward the retreating buffalo herd. But on the savanna, those who let raw emotion dictate their actions rarely come out ahead. The Cape buffalo herd closes ranks into a tight phalanx, their pointed horns forming what looks like a bristling forest of blades. Dominant males hold the front line, shielding the females and calves behind a wall built from sheer strength and bone. This living fortress advances steadily, and a lion's claws find little purchase against hide roughly 0.8 inches thick. A skull as unyielding as concrete, crowned by heavy horns, is more than capable of inflicting serious injury on any pursuer bold enough to press the attack. Ultimately, the lions are forced into an unfavorable retreat, even within territory they normally control. And their frustrated response is a stark reminder that no power on the savanna is truly absolute. In this wild kingdom, no ruler holds their throne forever, and even those at the very top can eventually be pushed aside. Cape buffalo reproduction itself follows a coordinated group strategy designed to unleash a wave of new births all at once. Mating is timed to coincide with the end of the rainy season, taking full advantage of the richer supply of nutrients that follows. A gestation period of roughly 11.5 months ensures each calf is fully developed before it enters the world. When the rains finally return to the savanna, thousands of new calves appear almost simultaneously, overwhelming the hunting capacity of every predator nearby. A newborn buffalo must be standing within just 10 minutes of birth and ready to keep pace with the herd within about 30 minutes. Standing quickly is not optional, since the herd rarely slows down for its weakest members. Nutrient-rich milk fuels rapid muscle development, helping calves adapt swiftly to the demands ahead. And each young buffalo is kept at the very center of the formation, surrounded by multiple protective layers of adult guardians. A single distress call is enough to trigger a coordinated defensive response from the entire herd. This unity, built and refined over millions of years of evolution, remains the single most powerful tool that has allowed the species to endure. Every calf growing up today is, in effect, tomorrow's line of horns aimed outward at the next threat. Beneath heavy rain, the herd continues to swell, sustaining an endless cycle shaped by nature itself. On the savanna, motherhood is never a passive role, but a demanding, full-time commitment. And pregnancy and rearing offspring together form one of the greatest tests any creature can face. Threats come from every direction, from the claws of outside predators to rivalries within the same species and the unpredictable moods of the climate itself. Each species answers these challenges in its own way, developing distinct strategies aimed at one shared goal: ensuring the bloodline continues. True maternal devotion is measured in dedication, resilience, and the sheer capacity to shield the next generation from harm, since nature rarely leaves room for weakness. Along the banks of the Nile, crocodiles have carried out their own rituals of continuity since time immemorial. Remarkably, the sex of a hatchling is not decided by genetics at all, but by the surrounding temperature of the sand, a process scientists call temperature-dependent sex determination. When a nest holds steady between roughly 87.8 and 93.2 degrees Fahrenheit, male hatchlings emerge, while temperatures outside that narrow band tend to produce females instead. The mother crocodile becomes, in effect, a living fortress, going without food for as long as 3 months while she guards her buried treasure. The faintest sound rising from beneath the sand is enough to trigger her deeply ingrained protective instinct. Jaws capable of exerting roughly 22,000 newtons of force, more than strong enough to crush bone, become, remarkably, a gentle carrier for her young. An extraordinary sensitivity in her mouth allows her to transport dozens of fragile hatchlings without so much as puncturing their delicate skin. The river itself is an unforgiving environment, with offspring mortality rates reaching as high as 99%. Nile perch, kingfishers, and even fully grown members of their own species remain constant threats. Through it all, the mother crocodile must stay ever vigilant, ready to fend off intruders and keep her brood safe among the reeds. On the savanna, nothing is given freely, not even to a life that has only just arrived in the world. No creature, however newly born, is exempt from the unforgiving laws that govern this open grassland, where the contest between predator and offspring plays out again and again beneath an indifferent sky. Among giraffes, the next generation is forged through trials of enormous scale, waged by 33 lb giants whose necks alone become weapons. A single swing of that 6.6-foot neck can generate enough force to injure an opponent internally, and it is this brutal calculus that decides who will earn the right to pass on their bloodline. Life for a young giraffe begins with a literal fall, a fall of roughly 6.6 feet to the earth after 15 long months of gestation. That sudden drop is not cruelty, but necessity, since the shock is what jolts the newborn's lungs into their first breaths. Guided by nothing more than raw instinct, the calf claws its way upright and takes its first unsteady steps within about 30 minutes of being born. To keep itself alive, a fragile skeleton must immediately learn to bear roughly 132 lbs of body weight on 4 trembling legs, fighting gravity from the very first moment. Even the calf's small heart is already working overtime, driving blood up that long neck to the brain at a pressure nearly double that found in the human body. Having failed twice in a row and left frustrated, a pride of lions makes a bold decision, turning their attention toward the African elephant, a mobile fortress weighing an astonishing 13,228 lbs and radiating raw power. While a full-grown adult remains essentially untouchable, the smaller calves represent a far more realistic target. The lions exploit the elephant's limited night vision, using the cover of darkness to their advantage. Working together, the pride takes turns harassing the herd, slowly wearing down a mother elephant's energy reserves over an extended, exhausting standoff. In the end, success comes not from raw strength, but from the predator's extraordinary patience. Beneath murky river water, a hippopotamus weighing roughly 307 lbs deliberately chooses to give birth underwater, avoiding both the punishing heat above and lurking predators nearby. The instant a calf leaves its mother's body, an urgent race for air begins, and it must reach the surface almost immediately for its lungs to begin working properly. Surprisingly, the greatest danger rarely comes from lions, but from dominant adult males of the calf's own species. The looming threat of infanticide often forces a mother to withdraw from the wider pod entirely, isolating herself in order to protect her newborn. Maternal instinct transforms this seemingly lumbering giant into a formidable wall of strength and resolve. Tusks measuring up to 19.7 inches stand ready to confront any threat, even one twice the hippo's own size. Nutrient-dense milk fuels rapid growth in a calf weighing around 110 kilograms, allowing it to develop quickly even underwater. On land, the young hippo remains shielded behind a solid barrier of muscle several inches thick, built purely for defense. A mother's protection here is absolute and unyielding, establishing a zone of total security around her calf. There is no room for compromise, only the firm limits she sets through sheer physical force. Moving like a shadow through the brush, the black rhinoceros lives a mostly solitary existence, remaining highly alert to any hint of movement nearby. A gestation period lasting between 15 and 16 months represents a careful, deliberate process of preparing a fully formed successor for the world outside. The calf always walks behind its mother, ceding the lead position to her sharp hearing and heightened awareness. For roughly 4 years, the mother rhino serves as a living shield, ensuring her calf always has a safe retreat close at hand. Along the way, she passes down essential survival knowledge, the location of dependable water sources, and above all, the habit of anticipating danger before it fully arrives. Sudden, forceful reactions are sometimes directed even at harmless vegetation or passing vehicles, simply because no potential threat can be safely ignored. This heightened defensiveness actually stems from notably poor eyesight, which renders anything beyond roughly 98 feet little more than a blur. Unable to reliably distinguish a bush from a lion, black rhinos tend to act first and sort out the truth later. In their world, hesitation can mean the abrupt end of the journey, which is precisely why their defensive reflex never truly switches off. Smell provides the earliest warning of danger, but weak eyesight forces the body into a state of instant readiness. It is, evolutionarily speaking, far safer to charge a harmless boulder by mistake than to allow a genuine predator to close in unnoticed under cover of darkness. This intense vigor reflects the resolve of a solitary fighter determined to preserve its own life at any cost. That same heightened reactivity is precisely why the black rhino earned a place among the so-called Big Five, the group traditionally recognized as Africa's most formidable animals. Coined during 19th century hunting expeditions, the title originally honored creatures that refused to go down without a fight. The African lion is a master of ambush, capable of striking decisively even after prolonged physical exertion. The leopard moves like a hidden shadow, combining sharp intelligence with the remarkable strength needed to haul heavy prey up into the treetops. The African elephant carries immense power of its own, able to drive off rivals with nothing more than a sweep of its trunk. The black rhinoceros stands as an unmovable wall, meeting every stimulus with the same relentless energy. The Cape buffalo, meanwhile, is known for a kind of strategic patience, quietly anticipating the movements of its own would-be hunters. Today, the Big Five has largely left behind its origins in confrontation and hunting to become a celebrated symbol of conservation. Even so, the sheer authority these animals command remains a vivid reminder of the raw power still present in the natural world. Ostriches employ one of the most sophisticated reproductive strategies on the savanna, built around a communal nest that can hold as many as 60 eggs. A dominant female oversees the nest, allowing other females to add their own eggs alongside hers in the same location. What looks, at first glance, like an act of generosity is in fact a calculated strategy for collective protection. The dominant female places her own eggs in the safest position at the center, leaving the eggs of others arranged around the outer edge as a kind of living barrier. When a hyena or African wild dog approaches, it is these outer eggs that are reached first. In effect, the peripheral eggs serve as a sacrifice that helps guarantee the safety of the dominant lineage at the core. When chicks come under direct threat, a mother ostrich immediately performs her broken wing display to draw attention away from them. She stumbles convincingly, luring predators away from her young through a carefully staged performance. This combination of intelligence and careful organization gives ostriches a meaningful survival edge, even in some of the harshest terrain on the continent. Every year, the savanna greets its newest arrivals with the unforgiving demands of the Great Migration. This is no leisurely journey toward some promised destination, but a grueling trek spanning roughly 1,864 miles, filled with hazards at every turn. More than 2 million animals follow this same relentless cycle, chasing fresh resources while fleeing scarcity behind them. For the newest members of the herd, there is no such thing as rest or leniency. The journey opens amid choking dust, swift moving currents, and the constant looming presence of predators. The Mara River itself is far more than a simple water source. It is a place of genuine peril hidden beneath its muddy surface. Only those best equipped to adapt ever live to see the following dawn. The plains zebra acts almost as an experienced scout, guided by a remarkable geographic memory and organized within a tightly knit family structure. A lead stallion coordinates the group, maintaining strict order throughout the herd. Zebra foals arrive with notably long legs already fully formed, standing within about 15 minutes of birth and galloping alongside the herd within a single hour. The motion dazzle effect created by their striped coats produces a collective optical illusion whenever the herd moves as one. Lions, in particular, struggle to focus on any single target, their vision scrambled by the shifting mass of stripes in front of them. Yet the most serious danger often comes not from predators at all, but from rival stallions seeking to seize control of the group. A new leader may eliminate the previous stallion's offspring outright in order to establish his own bloodline. Faced with this reality, a mother zebra confronts an impossible choice, resisting with no guarantee of success or accepting the new order that has arrived. Within the migrating herd, a foal is always kept at the very center of the formation, surrounded and protected by watchful adults. Every striped youngster is shaped, quite literally, amid sudden shifts in power and split-second bursts of speed. Rigid reproductive hierarchies are not limited to the savanna's largest animals, as the meerkat clearly demonstrates. Do not be fooled by their small, playful appearance, because meerkat society actually operates under an extraordinarily strict chain of command. The privilege of motherhood belongs almost exclusively to a single dominant female, the individual who holds ultimate authority over the entire group. To keep resources concentrated where they matter most, this alpha female actively suppresses the reproductive capacity of the other females around her. Any subordinate who attempts to break from that arrangement risks expulsion, left to face the desert's harsh conditions alone and unprotected. The remaining females set aside their own reproductive instincts, instead devoting their energy to protecting and supporting the dominant female's offspring. Training the next generation follows a similarly disciplined pattern, with adults carefully teaching foraging skills to the young. Experienced elders will even bring scorpions stripped of their dangerous stingers, giving juveniles a safe way to practice essential hunting techniques. Under this tightly coordinated system, the group functions almost like a finely tuned machine in which every individual works ultimately in service of the leader's lineage. Within the branches of thorny acacia trees, secretary birds construct sturdy nests that double as training grounds for the next generation of aerial hunters. Rather than simply delivering food to be swallowed whole, a mother secretary bird deliberately brings live snakes and lizards, passing down active hunting techniques in the process. That nest, spanning roughly 8.2 feet across, effectively becomes an arena where future ground hunters hone their craft. Perhaps the species' most striking trait is its powerful leg strike, delivering force roughly 5 times the bird's own body weight. The strike itself unfolds in a mere 15 milliseconds, about 10 times faster than the blink of an eye, leaving prey virtually no chance to react. Young birds practice this technique daily, learning to pin down snakes before venom ever becomes a real danger. By the time they leave the nest for good, they have already become skilled ground hunters, walking the grass in search of their own meals. Here, maternal care takes the shape of rigorous technical training, molding each offspring into a formidable adversary of reptiles. Hornbill families rely on an extraordinary strategy for survival, sealing themselves inside tree cavities to create the strongest possible shelter for their young. The mother willingly accepts total isolation, plastering the entrance shut with mud and other materials to protect her offspring from harm. What remains is only a narrow slit, turning the nest into a fortress with severely restricted access. Inside that confined space, the mother molts her entire set of feathers and temporarily loses the ability to fly, devoting herself completely to caring for her chicks. From that point forward, the survival of the whole family depends on a single individual, the father. Day after day, the male makes hundreds of trips, delivering food through that narrow opening without fail. Should he fail to return, the entire brood faces starvation, and the once protective nest can quickly turn into the site of a tragic end. This arrangement represents an extraordinary act of trust, one built to shield the chicks from snakes, monkeys, and birds of prey alike. Once the chicks have grown large enough, the mother finally breaks down the barrier, bringing to a close her long mission as a dedicated protector. Amid the wildebeest herds, the eland stands out as a towering presence, the largest antelope found anywhere in Africa. A bull weighing up to 2,205 lb possesses more than enough raw muscle to drive off even a determined lioness. These giants rely on a caring strategy built around quality over quantity and strict collective support within the herd. Eland calves are gathered together in sizable nursery groups, watched over by carefully chosen guardians. This arrangement frees up mothers to range farther afield in search of the richest available food sources. Approaching an eland herd is no simple task once its defensive circle has formed, with sharp horns pointed outward to shield the next generation safely tucked away at the center. The ability to leap as high as 8.2 feet from a standing start is itself a display of raw power capable of earning respect from even the boldest predator. In many ways, the eland teaches a broader lesson that size alone is an advantage, but discipline is what truly guarantees safety. Not far away, The tawpy takes a different approach entirely, turning the open grassland into a vibrant genetic proving ground. Each male claims a termite mound as his own, marking his territory and locking horns with rivals for control of the most desirable position. Only the winners of these contests earn the right to father offspring, ensuring that each calf inherits the traits of a proven champion. A young tawpy is, in essence, the product of the species' strongest qualities: exceptional speed, remarkable endurance, and an unusually alert temperament. After a brief period spent hiding, its reddish-brown coat blending seamlessly with mud and dry grass, the calf rises and quickly becomes a high-performance runner capable of sustaining record-breaking pace over long distances. Unlike the cheetah, which relies on explosive short bursts of speed, the tawpy favors extended pursuits designed to exhaust anyone foolish enough to give chase. Its entire existence becomes a continuous test of stamina and resolve, and those unable to keep up simply fall behind in the eyes of nature. In this particular kingdom, continuity is never left to chance, but instead stands as a direct reward for total excellence. High above the plains, the martial eagle reigns as a solitary figure, its wingspan wide enough to momentarily eclipse the sun. As the largest eagle in Africa, it possesses talons powerful enough to overwhelm even primates in a single strike. Because raising offspring demands such an enormous investment, a breeding pair typically produces just one egg every 2 years. Throughout the first 3 months, the father delivers a steady stream of fresh prey, everything from snakes to young antelope, to nourish the family's sole heir to the sky. The mother carefully divides each portion, feeding her only chick with the meticulous devotion of royalty. This intensive care is designed to shape a single, exceptional hunter, capable of eventually claiming its own dominant place in the airspace above. Parental supervision continues for nearly a full year, a record among raptors, giving the young eagle ample time to master both flight and the shifting thermal currents it depends on. It must learn to dive from heights of roughly 3,280 feet with tremendous speed and pinpoint precision. Should the chick fail to survive, it marks not only the end of that particular cycle, but 2 full years of dedicated effort undone in an instant. It is little wonder, then, that the martial eagle defends its territory, spanning some 31 miles, with such unwavering intensity against any intruder. The true victor of the Great Migration is neither predator nor prey, but rather the scavenger patiently waiting to claim what remains. African vultures take no part in the chase itself, instead circling high overhead, calmly observing as other creatures' journeys reach their end. They construct sprawling aerial colonies, dense clusters of nests perched atop ancient acacia trees. Young vultures grow up surrounded by the remnants of the natural world, drawing sustenance from whatever is left behind by animals that did not complete their own journeys. Their digestive systems operate with extraordinarily strong acidity, allowing them to safely process material that would sicken almost any other species. Parents may fly hundreds of miles in a single day, sweeping across the sky like a living canopy stretched over the plains below. Perhaps the most important lesson passed down to the next generation is patience paired with strict social order at every feeding site. Younger vultures must wait for the powerful lappet-faced vulture to tear open the toughest hide before they can claim their own share. Ultimately, vulture survival depends entirely on the passing of other creatures, and the species thrives precisely during periods of scarcity and searing heat. The end of one life cycle becomes, quite literally, the beginning of another, an unmistakable law of the wild kingdom. In this sense, the vulture serves as the final act in nature's ongoing sequence, clearing the way for an entirely new chapter of life to begin. While the most vulnerable creatures of the savanna find safety in numbers, the most accomplished hunters often choose solitude instead. In this demanding kingdom, being alone is not a source of sorrow, but rather the very pinnacle of a well-honed survival strategy. These animals move like living shadows through the night, leaving behind no trace and needing no allies to succeed. Their existence is defined by silence, where a single failure can threaten the continuity of an entire lineage. For a solitary mother, raising cubs becomes an exceptionally demanding balancing act, requiring her to be both hunter and protector at once. Without any group to rely on, she has only her instincts and abilities, refined across millions of years of evolution, to fall back on. The leopard embodies concealment and concentrated power better than almost any other creature, remaining one of the forest's most genuinely elusive figures. During pregnancy, a female transforms rocky crevices or dense thorn thickets into a hidden fortress meant to shelter her future offspring. A leopard cub enters the world blind and completely dependent, representing perhaps the most delicate treasure found anywhere on a savanna full of danger. For the first 10 days of life, the mother remains almost entirely devoted to her cubs, rarely straying from the den as she works to keep her tiny newborns warm. Yet the pressing need for food eventually forces this queen of the night to leave her cubs unguarded, opening the door to outside threats. Roughly 50% of young leopards never make it through their first year, falling to predators like lions and hyenas. To throw off any pursuers, the mother regularly relocates her den, all the while teaching her cubs the essential technique of retreating vertically into the trees. A uniquely structured shoulder allows leopards to haul prey weighing up to 3 times their own body weight straight up into the canopy. High branches become a kind of private dining room, where a young leopard first learns to turn the treetops into a safe place to feed. Cubs must master the art of stalking prey to within roughly 16.4 feet before striking with deadly precision. By around 18 months of age, maternal supervision comes to a firm and deliberate end, pushing the young leopard to carve out territory entirely its own. The final lesson: is unmistakable. There is no room here for lasting dependence. Either an animal learns to fend for itself, or its journey ends in solitude. The honey badger's survival strategy rests almost entirely on sheer determination, making it one of the most fearless creatures found anywhere on the planet. A mother honey badger carries herself with the mindset of a seasoned fighter, favoring direct confrontation over any form of submission. Although her cub is born completely dependent, it already carries inherited traits of remarkable resistance to venoms and toxins. From an extremely early age, the very first lesson is not how to flee, but how to stand firm in the face of real challenges. The mother teaches her young to dig quickly and puts scorpions and snakes to use as hands-on training tools out in the field. In time, the cub learns to immobilize a snake before it can even trigger its own defenses. Should a bite land regardless, the honey badger's body can briefly enter a state of suspended function to neutralize the venom before resuming normal activity. A remarkably thick, loose-fitting hide makes it difficult for lions or leopards to ever secure a firm, lasting grip. When confronting opponents many times its size, the mother lets out sharp vocal warnings and advances with unmistakable, aggressive energy. This bold posture is often enough to convince larger predators that conflict simply is not worth the trouble, prompting them to back away instead. Raised on this foundation, the honey badger grows into an animal defined by remarkable confidence, relying above all on sheer persistence to make it through. Out among the marshes and tall grass, the serval moves with quiet discretion, prioritizing precision over brute strength at every turn. This slender cat possesses notably elongated legs and unusually wide ears that function almost like high-sensitivity sensors tuned to the surrounding environment. A mother serval is, above all, a master of patience, keeping her kittens tucked deep within dense vegetation to avoid the notice of any onlookers. Unlike lions, servals focus their efforts on smaller prey, achieving roughly a 50% success rate through their distinctive pouncing technique launched from above. Kittens are trained extensively in areas of tall grass, where hearing serves as the primary sense used to pinpoint a hidden target. They learn to detect prey from several feet away and to execute leaps reaching heights of up to 9.8 feet. As they descend rapidly toward the ground, their forelegs help stabilize the target before the final, decisive capture. A mother serval seems, in effect, to teach a simple lesson: that being the biggest is far less important than being agile and precise. Even so, she remains constantly alert to the looming threat posed by the martial eagle overhead. By around 6 months of age, a young serval already possesses the full technical skill of a seasoned hunter, moving with an expert's precision. At that point, the mother actively encourages independence, pushing her offspring to establish territories of their own. In this way, the serval stands as a model of efficiency, a fully realized hunting machine wrapped in an unmistakably elegant form. Retna Pool sits at the heart of the Serenera region, and from a distance, it looks like little more than a vast field of gray boulders resting in the mud. Approach closer, though, and a powerful odor along with deep, resonant grunts quickly reveals the truth. This is a hippo pool, home to hundreds of hippos packed together within dense, murky waters. The hippopotamus remains one of the most widely misunderstood animals in nature, appearing plump, sluggish, even faintly comical. Yet, in reality, it stands among the fiercest amphibious powerhouses found anywhere on the African continent. Few people realize that hippos cannot actually swim in the conventional sense. Their bodies are simply too dense, sinking straight toward the riverbed the moment they enter the water. Their bones carry an unusual, lead-like density, and rather than swim, hippos essentially run along the bottom, moving with the strange, weightless grace of astronauts drifting through low gravity. Buoyed by the surrounding water, even an animal weighing as much as 6,600 lbs can seem to bound along with surprising lightness. Their skin, meanwhile, keeps them tethered to water for life. Beneath the scorching Serengeti sun, hippo skin can crack and dry out within just minutes of prolonged exposure. To guard against this, hippos secrete a distinctive reddish fluid, often mistaken at first glance for blood, that functions as a kind of natural sunscreen. Known scientifically as hipposudoric acid, this compound offers real protection against ultraviolet radiation, while also carrying notable antibacterial properties, guarding against the microorganisms and parasites that thrive in murky water, a form of biological armor built for a life spent in the mud. But the hippo's most formidable weapon by far is its jaw. At Retna Pool, it is not unusual to see them gaping wide, almost as if trying to swallow the sky itself, a display commonly known as the threatening yawn. That jaw can open to roughly 150 degrees, exposing tusks measuring up to 19.7 inches, hard as ivory and sharp enough to cut. It serves as a final, unmistakable warning, and if ignored, the attack that follows can be devastating. A hippo's bite delivers around 12,600 newtons of force, enough to snap a Nile crocodile clean in half or crush a small boat outright, making the hippopotamus arguably the most dangerous large mammal found anywhere in Africa. By day, they appear largely social and languid, content to lounge together in the water. Yet by night, an entirely different, far more solitary temperament emerges. They leave the river along well-worn hippo trails, sometimes walking as far as 6.2 miles in a single night, simply to graze. A single hippo can consume up to 88 lebs of grass within just a few hours. Their true ecological importance, however, lies somewhere few people ever think to look: in their own waste. Hippos feed on land, yet defecate almost exclusively in the water, and their droppings end up nourishing the entire aquatic food web, from fish to countless species of insects. There is also the curious, uneasy relationship they share with the Nile crocodile, which frequently basks along the backs of resting hippos. A silent, unspoken truce sustained purely by mutual caution. The crocodile may reign supreme underwater, but the moment an enraged bull hippo turns aggressive, even a crocodile becomes little more than a fragile branch waiting to snap. Where sheer size and fury make the rules, the hippopotamus remains the undisputed judge. If the Serengeti could be imagined as one enormous living organism, the wildebeest would be its warm blood, coursing endlessly through every vein of the ecosystem, dictating the pulse and rhythm of the entire landscape. With a population reaching as high as 1.5 million individuals, they form the single largest concentration of animal biomass found anywhere across these savannas. Viewed from above, their migration resembles a dark river of ink, winding its way through an endless golden sea of grass, an unstoppable, ever-flowing tide. Their first great contribution comes as nature's own living lawnmowers. Wildebeest possess broad muzzles specially adapted for trimming the lowest, most tender layers of young grass. Each day, this immense herd consumes upward of 4,000 tons of vegetation. Their grazing actually stimulates faster, healthier regrowth across the plains, and in turn, they deposit some 500 tons of waste daily, a staggering volume that replenishes vital nutrients throughout the soil. Without wildebeest, grasslands would grow unchecked, dry out, and become dangerously flammable, and the entire food chain would begin unraveling from its very foundation. Perhaps most remarkable of all, though, is their collective intelligence. There is no single leader issuing commands, only pure instinct combined with the consensus of the crowd, functioning together almost like one vast superorganism. Every major movement is guided by the scent of water and minerals carried on the wind, and wildebeest can detect moisture and phosphorus rising from fresh young grass from as far as 31 miles away. One animal begins to run, and within moments, an entire million follow. What looks, from a distance, like pure chaos, is in fact a remarkably efficient survival algorithm, one that pushes overall predation risk down to a bare minimum. The pinnacle of their evolutionary strategy, though, is synchronized reproduction. Every February, across the southern plains, something close to a biological earthquake takes place. Within just 3 weeks, roughly 500,000 calves are born, amounting to more than 8,000 births every single day. This is predator satiation in its purest form. For a brief window, the savanna becomes almost overwhelmed with vulnerable prey, and lions, leopards, hyenas, and African wild dogs hunt themselves to exhaustion, yet still cannot keep pace with the sheer number of newborns. More than half of that year's calves survive simply by virtue of having been born at exactly the same moment as so many others. And these calves are nothing short of remarkable. Within just 7 minutes of birth, they are already standing. And within 20 minutes, they are running at full speed, already beginning their lifelong instinct to flee from the very first moment of existence. Wildebeest ultimately prevail through collective strength, sheer numbers, disciplined rhythm, and tireless endurance. They remain, in every sense, the engine, the pulse, and the enduring soul of the Serengeti. As the deep red sun slips below the horizon and darkness slowly swallows the savanna, the struggle for survival never truly pauses. In this untamed kingdom, being a mother is not a synonym for gentleness, but a title reserved for some of the fiercest warriors nature has ever produced. Motherhood here is not woven from soothing lullabies, but forged instead in scorching heat, choking dust, and the very fangs of enemies. It represents the ultimate sacrifice, one in which mothers willingly stake their own existence so that a single, fragile heartbeat might continue to pulse just a little longer. From the towering forest elephant down to the smallest, most unassuming cat, every species on this landscape shares one common mission: to defy the extinction that stalks them at every turn. Together, they teach a single, powerful truth: that love itself can be one of the most defiant acts against death imaginable. The survivors of the Serengeti are not simply the product of luck, but a legacy earned through the resilience and sacrifice of countless generations that came before them. They stand as living proof that even amid the deepest darkness, the flame of a life can burn brighter than ever. Faced with sacrifice this raw and this magnificent, it is worth pausing to ask a final question. When darkness closes in and danger comes calling, how far would any of us go to protect those we hold dearest? May this ongoing story of survival, courage, and devotion serve as a lasting reminder of the extraordinary resilience found throughout the natural world. And may it inspire each of us to carry forward in our own lives that same fierce and enduring instinct to protect what matters most.